Hey, so we are doing the Causevest Conversations, and we are talking to one of our development team, Mr. Wahala, and we're going to be looking at some of the opportunities we see in the space at the moment, especially since Causevest Coin is getting ready to launch. So I'll let you go straight ahead, Mr. Wahala. What is the current asset you are pitching or presenting as an opportunity for the Causevest portfolio?
Yeah, so I'm looking at Paul Stork's eCash fork. It's actually a Bitcoin fork that's going to be coming up. I think it's sometime around August. But basically, you can think of it almost like an airdrop. If you hold BTC, you'll hold that much eCash when the fork happens. Paul Stork is an interesting character. He's an old Bitcoiner who's actually been against most other types of coins. And generally when this happens, when it's one of those people that spins up their own coin, it's usually a scam. But, I've followed him for a long time. I've actually incorporated some of his ideas into our design. Not everything, of course, but, I think he has some interesting thoughts. And basically, he has been trying to get this change into Bitcoin for ages that would allow sort of the side, what we in the neighborhood and the Causevest ecosystem called the neighborhood system. He's been trying to build something like that for Bitcoin. He's one of my inspirations for that idea. And he's just had, the political situation with Bitcoin Core is just atrocious, and he's never been able to do anything, even though his idea is really very simple and very risk-free, basically, because it's all opt-in. If you don't use his side chains, there's no risk. So why not let people do it? And of course, he's been stonewalled by Core forever. So he finally decided to bite the bullet and be like, all right, he has his own software. We'll just, fork Bitcoin. And then I think he would actually consider it a victory, even if, Bitcoin eventually incorporates his ideas. And so that's why, looking at the asset, because it's a Bitcoin fork, a lot of Bitcoiners are going to dump. A lot of the coins might be lost or locked up, say, like, I don't know what all the ETFs are going to do, or Sailor's going to do with their eCash, because all the institutional people are going to have eCash. They're going to probably dump, or have to set up some way to give it to them, where they might just lose them or whatever. So if you wanted to capture any of this fork, you probably want to withdraw it to your own wallet just for and then split it. But that's always a bit risky. So the best way to do it would just be to withdraw it to your own wallet and hold there for a little while. But yeah.
Do you mind sharing the screen of the website for this particular project, if possible?
Yeah, sure. Let me try to bring it up.
Because I remember I tried to find it before, and I found a similar project, but it was actually a different one. And it's quite challenging in the space to sometimes find the correct ticker or the correct project, because you end up investing. People have done this multiple times, both in equities and crypto. Investing in the wrong project can be quite a big problem. So if you can, even if you share it in the chat or put it on the shared screen, that would be useful. All right, cool.
Yeah, can you see it?
Yeah, I don't know if I can. Let's see if I can maximum. Yeah, there we go. It's a maximum. Do you mind putting the name in the chat as well? Because I'll make sure it's there. So that's eCash.com, yeah?
Yeah, he actually goes able to get the domain. Which is, I guess, a plus. He's got the hardcore activation here. He has some FAQs about why is he doing this. Yeah,
cool. So that's the guy. Cool. So yeah. I'd ask a few questions. So in terms of strategy for short-term investors and long-term investors, so like ultimately, firstly, why has the Bitcoin Core team shunned him, in your opinion?
Because and I think his criticisms are all pretty much right, where, it's just been politically captured by, various ETF stuff, Wall Street. It's not interested in actually trying to push the Bitcoin network forward. It's only about price, which really, at the end of the day, if Bitcoin is just a ticker you buy on NASDAQ or through some brokerage or whatever, then it doesn't actually matter. And it basically has failed at that point. What matters is the actual, underlying peer-to-peer network and system. And if that ends up dying and getting subsumed by this, ticker that Sailor owns or whatever, And he's always pushed to try to get like the network stronger to improve the actual underlying thing that holds the BTC.
In use case, I mean, I don't fully agree with that in the sense that I agree with the underlying concept of the network being captured by big players. Unfortunately, it happens in a lot of markets, but I don't think ultimately BTC is attempting to compete with fiat and trying to be an alternative currency. That's the aim it's tried to go for, as opposed to ETH, and it's ultimately, in my opinion, been quite successful at that. So I do understand they might be resistant to change, like they might have seen a wheel and not want it to turn. But moving on to
I mean, I understand that, and the biggest thing is that everything he does is like, if you don't opt into it, it's pretty much risk free.
So my next question, forgive me for interrupting you. My next question is regards to integration of the technology. So let's say his fork is a hard fork, right? Yeah, if his hard fork gets traction and people use it and they find it interesting, what do you think the response from Bitcoin Core would be? For Bitcoin holders, is it then a threat? Is it something whereby the Bitcoin Core would try and adopt the technology or the changes they're trying to implement, or do you think they'll ignore it and it'll just become a separate coin?
I'm certain they'll ignore it. They're not institutionally capable of actually absorbing new ideas, especially. So he's imagining that if he launches eCash and it's successful, Bitcoin Core might see that and be like, oh, we actually have to compete and integrate this. And his idea of profit maximization, that would be the logical or rational thing for them to do. But in practice, there's just too much ego here. Their egos would get tangled up in this. The idea, it doesn't even, they would almost certainly prefer that the Bitcoin project fail than they have to admit that they were wrong. So I can't imagine Bitcoin actually ever.
That sounds like a few economies I know of as well that I can imagine. Right. So let's come to the end of this interview now in regards to this. So let's talk about three elements. So as a short-term investor, what's the play?
I mean, short term, I suspect price will always be negative at launch, just because there'll be people who want to dump. And that's the point where liquidity is going to be distressed, because it has no history. The software might not work. It might just someone might rug. I didn't even mention one of the most controversial things he's doing. He's basically selling half of Satoshi's stash. So basically, it's known or at least very highly thought that certain coins are Satoshis, and what he's doing is he's basically taking half of them. So those addresses will only get half the eCash instead of the 100%. And he always says, well, without this project, Satoshi gets 0 eCash. So we're not actually taking anything, we're just giving him less.
But when you say taking, is he putting it on the market and dumping it, or is he just hoarding it?
He's got supposedly some early investors that will be able to buy. I don't know if there's lockups or what's the line.
So in other words, again, sorry for interrupting me, and I'm sorry if it annoys anyone. It's just because we've got a time constraint. In regards to the overarching fundamentals here, then there's not only, let's say with BTCE back in the day, there's not only just going to be natural sell-off, there's going to be internal sell-off as well. The organized and the people pushing this are going to be trying to sell the coins because they have this additional Satoshi's holdings, correct?
Yeah, definitely could be the case.
Okay, cool. So we know that in the short term, it's probably the best strategy is probably going to be to dump as soon as you can. So as soon as that timer hits that, you get your coins set up. If it's on markets, wherever it's enabled, you might want to dump it and you get essentially a free dividend. So let's look at medium to long-term investors. What do you think the play is there?
So what I would pay attention to is, all right, it's created, the price goes down, then look and see if the network actually stabilizes, if he actually gets his proportional mining power at like 1% of the price of BTC, or I'm not sure what he's going for success, but he certainly thinks a fraction of percent of BTC is probably where it's going to start out, and then start looking to see if does the tech actually work? What does his side chains actually come into use? People actually use them to actually push software out people actually use. Does he actually does his prediction market ideas actually see use? Then you might want to buy back in. So there's going to be a dip. it's you, but then it's everyone can watch. Does he survive? Does he actually, push forward? And then there'll be a gap where where he's releasing software where he has users, but people aren't paying attention to him. Sort of like, how Causevest is right now, where, things are happening, but no one's paying attention. That's your buy opportunity.
Wicked. Makes a lot of sense. Sorry. And obviously the main thing I'd say there is, so one of the strategies you came up with essentially is dump high, rebuy low, essentially, where the cost is going to be minimal to potentially rebuy it because there's going to be a lot of selling pressure anyway. Another alternative obviously would just be to hold your coins if you're not interested in even getting involved and just see what happens. The other
you can always hold both forks. He explicitly says that that's good if you do that.
Another option obviously is to sell some of your assets straight away and hold the rest, maybe like a 50 or 60% portfolio sale, hold the rest and see what happens. What do you think the Causevest portfolio should do with this asset?
I would probably hold a fraction just because I like to hedge. So I would say hold 5 to 50% depending on how it works out, and then just wait and then keep an eye on it, and if it looks like things are turning around, might be a good idea to increase that.
And when it comes to it looks like from your basic pitch essentially is that they expect to have an active development team and at this stage be really keen on partnerships, which I guess could be really good for the Causevest Network as well. But we're not going to talk too much about the Causevest Network here. I just want to focus on this is eCash, correct?
Yep, this is eCash, Paul Stork's fork. He's the sort of the head man, so there's other people involved.
Wicked. All right, thank you for the overview and thanks for introducing the coin. And we might be looking to add this to our portfolio. Cool, thank you.
All right, thank you.